Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to the Showing Up to Your Life podcast and YouTube channel. My name is Art Burns, as you know, and as you probably also know, I'm really excited to be here with you today. And that's true every day. I mean, again, today's another kind of low energy day for me. My wife and kids are away on a little camping trip with my daughter's friend's family. I didn't go because I have work to do. I had a couple of meetings today, and also I just really kind of wanted to just, hang back and just, not be around a bunch of people I don't know and that kind of thing. Just because of my just general just energy levels, and so of course, while everybody's away, my routine is completely off, and I wound up last night just staying up way later than I should have, watching something on Netflix that I really didn't need to watch, but we all do that, right? And so this morning, what I'm trying to do is not to hold this against myself, right? Not to beat myself up over it, but instead, treat myself with a little compassion and certainly with some forgiveness, right? Because I know I shouldn't have stayed up that late, right? I knew that I had meetings this morning. I knew that, and part of it was also staying up, like cleaning and stuff like that. So it wasn't just, and certainly not like the old days where it would have been like, 15 beers and watching Netflix, it certainly was nothing like that, so things have come a long way, and it's important for me to recognize that about myself, right? But it's really just important to give myself the forgiveness and the compassion, right? To say like, hey, look, yeah, it's maybe you did make a mistake, but you know what? It's okay, and today's gonna be hard. It's really gonna be hard, and so you just gotta be kind to yourself through the difficulty, and remember that there's a lot of times when people show up to work and they're really exhausted, and it doesn't make you some kind of freak. It doesn't make me some kind of freak that I'm in this position, that I made the mistake, that I'm all that kind of stuff, but it makes me human, right? So here I am, tired and human, and showing up though, right? I am showing up, and I'm not showing up with like this distracted mind. I'm not sitting here saying, okay, I'm just going to get through this. In fact, I just stopped and started over my recording here because I found myself just kind of like, no, dude, you're not showing up. You're not showing up. And so, so it is important to, to kind of, allow yourself to show up even if you're feeling like crap, right? And that's the trick, right? And again, how we do that is simply most effectively through self-compassion, right? Because if I'm compassionate towards myself, if I hold myself with a level of kindness, and again, not only noticing the difficulty that I'm feeling, but also recognizing that difficulty does not isolate me from the rest of humanity. It connects me back to the rest of humanity, right? These are very important things to notice in the process of self-compassion. And so by doing this, now I feel like, okay, yeah, I feel okay. Like, yeah, I'm still tired. That didn't change. I mean, I'm drinking tea, so I'll get some caffeine energy coming, but I'm still going to be not 100%, and that's okay, right? Life does not require me to be 100% all the time. Life requires me just to show up and see what happens, right? And be curious and be accepting and be flexible, be adaptive. And that's what I'm doing. And so I'm here showing up for you, even though I'd rather be lying in bed. Maybe watching more Netflix, maybe not. I don't know. But anyway, so before we get into today's topic, I want to remind you of an announcement that I just made yesterday, because this is something that I think could be really, really valuable and really, really, hopefully very important, something that could be very important, okay? And that is this new group coaching that I'm about to launch, okay? I'm hoping next week even, right? So it could be as soon as next Thursday night, that you would be able to, just drop in, donation based, right? So you pay 10, 15 bucks or something like that, and you show up, just drop in with a question, and maybe with just a desire to learn something, right? And you will benefit, and you will benefit greatly from that, okay? Because here's the thing, right? And this is going to tie into what we're going to talk about today in the topic of today's today's podcast. So and video. So please bear with me. Okay, I'm not off on a tangent here. I promise. We're gonna loop around. So the thing about mindfulness is, and compassion also, right, is that it's just not enough to just understand it, right? Like, so I come here every day and I give you lots of information. I give you lots of topics and tips and sort of ways to look at things. And that's my goal for these videos, right? That's what I try to bring here, and the podcast too, of course. That's what I try to bring here, right? To bring you some, things that might just shift your thinking a little bit towards becoming present, becoming more accepting, becoming curious about what's going on, and to becoming more compassionate for yourself and for everyone else in your life, right? And so this is the sort of gist of what I do here, right? But if you're only listening to all of this and you're only watching these videos, even if you're taking copious notes and watching them over and over and over again, right? There's still a limitation to a level of all of this that you're going to be able to cultivate into your life, right? The key is beyond just understanding this, right? The key is knowing how to practice it. Okay, that's the really important thing. And that's the thing that I can help you with as an individual thing, right? Because I can't, there's, every day there's like a couple of hundred people who open this message and look at the video or listen to the podcast. Collectively, it's a couple of hundred people, 300 people, let's say, right? It's 300 different people. Every one of you is different from each other, right? So there's no way for me here to broadcast the perfect practice for everyone. Right. And as I said yesterday, it's not like I am running like a Buddhist center where everybody's coming in already kind of read a couple of books, already kind of interested and know what it's all about. And we're just going to try to do the thing. Right. It's completely different from all that. Right. And so in these hour-long or 2-hour-long meetings that I'm going to do every week, right, this is an opportunity for you to say, okay, Art, how do I practice compassion in my life? I work alone. You always say that when you're at work, you should look around, but I don't have anybody at work. I work overnights. I never see it. What do I do? How do I do it? I can give you a practice that will work for you, I promise. But I don't know that you're out there. I don't know that you work at night and you don't have human interaction at work. I don't know that, right? And that's just, of course, one scenario, right? But out of 300 people, the permutations of different scenarios are, truly like boggling the mind, right? But if you show up in my Zoom meeting and we speak for maybe 3 minutes, okay, I can send you off with a perfect practice that will work for you. And next week you can show up and I'll ask you if it's working for you. And you'll tell me either, yes, it's working, Art, I can't believe how great it is, or no, Art, it's still not working because of this. At which point I have another practice I can give you. Right? That's the benefit of a coach, right? The benefit of a coach is somebody who's going to help you to work through it, when the just sort of the out of box kind of thing doesn't work, because it's not going to work for everyone. It's not one size fits all, right? So once again, we're going to start doing this. Again, I'm hoping next week. It's looking like Thursday is going to be the day. Okay, that's what seems to be right for a couple of people. Now, here's the thing. I would be willing to do 2 different nights. So if there's, if you're out there saying, gosh, this sounds perfect, I would love to do this, this group coaching thing. It sounds just lovely, and I would just so want to do it. But I can only do it on Tuesdays. Like, that's the only possible time I could do it. Well, if I get a few people to do it on Tuesdays, I'll do it on Tuesdays. Yeah, it's a day off, but that's okay. I love you, and I'll do it. Yeah, let's do that, right? So the point is that I need to hear from you. All right, we need to get a dialogue going. Okay, so if you could kindly just send me a message, tell me that you're interested in this. Tell me, you know what, Art, this sounds like a dumb idea. Stop talking about it, right? Whatever it is, send me an email. I want to hear from you. I really do. All right. And I promise there's no spam involved. There's no, I think you know me well enough by now, right? I talk to marketing people and I tell them I've been sending out a daily email to a mailing list that, at one point I had 5,000 people on my mailing list. Right now it's about 3,000 and something like that, And marketing people are like, how can you not make money from that mailing list? I'm like, because I'm not trying to make money. I'm trying to help people. And they say, well, that's your problem. I said, no, that's your problem. But at this point, yeah, I want to hear from you. I really do. I'm asking. Okay. And again, just tell me what you think about this, thing. Is Thursday night a good night for you? Again, do you think it's just a horrible idea? I shouldn't talk about it anymore. Do you think it's a great idea? Do you have a suggestion for what you would like this thing to look like? Bring it all. Okay. Bring it all. Because you know what? This is a relationship. Right? I'm performing my part of the relationship. I'm asking you to give me the other half of the relationship. All right? It's a fair question. It's a fair request. All right? And so that brings us to the topic of the day, which is relationships. And it was specifically the importance of repair at the time, after a rupture in the relationship. Now, here's the thing, right? And our lives are filled with relationships, right? You have a relationship with the bus driver who you only see once a month. You have a relationship with the people at the store, the cashiers and the clerks who you might see over and over, right? The people who you recognize, say, oh, hey, how are you doing today, right? That's a relationship. You have a relationship with your children. You might have a relationship with your parents. You have a relationship to your spouse if you're married. Otherwise, you have friend relationships. You have relationships with people at work. You have relationships with the guy at the post office, right? Even if it's somebody who you only experience for 2 minutes, that's a 2-minute relationship, right? And so human interaction and human relationships are everywhere in our lives, right? And they're one of the most important aspects of our lives. As I've talked about here quite often, the human relationships that we have and the ability to connect to each other, right, on a level of compassion and kindness and reciprocation and resonance and attunement, right, and the trust that becomes that comes to fruition from all of that, right? As Dan Siegel talks about, I think I've mentioned here, I'm in the middle of a 6-month course with Dan Siegel called a comprehensive course on interpersonal neurobiology, right? And so this is talking a lot about relationships that we have, right? And the reason I bring this up in the context of the practice that I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, right? Anyway, I'm sorry. Before I just was about to tell you about Dan Siegel. So one of the things that Dan Siegel talks about, Dan Siegel is a doctor who's done, he's worked as a pediatrician. He's worked as a child psychiatrist. He is a adult psychiatrist or all around psychiatrist, I guess. He's a medical doctor. He's an amazing guy, okay? And so he calls relationships, right? He says that there's a part to every relationships, P-A-R-T. Now, Dan Siegel, in addition to being all those wonderful things, he's also an absolute addict for acronyms, which I happen to love, right? So the acronym PART stands for presence, attunement, resonance, and trust. Okay? And that's how we have relationships. Now, again, this can be in a 2-minute relationship that you have, at the post office or at the store or at the Starbucks, right? Or it could be a lifelong relationship you have with somebody who's, a childhood friend, right? And you're in your mid-age, right? Like there's all kinds of relationships that we have in our lives, right? But every relationship and relationships are this, it's almost like, well, I don't want to compare it to that. I was going to compare it to memory, but let's say that for a different time. But relationships, right? they're not just this sort of static thing that exists, right? Yeah, I have two sisters, right? But I haven't talked to them in a long time. So technically, am I even in a relationship with them? Am I relating to them by my non-interaction with them? No, I'm not. Now, that doesn't mean that we can not, with somebody like my sisters who I've known my whole life, just about when I was 5 years old, my first sister was born. When we, when we get that, because we have such a history together, yes, in 10 minutes of seeing them, we'll be right back to everything, right? So it's not something that's like, this really difficult, it's sort of a relationship that's on pause maybe, right? The point that I'm trying to make is, though, that the relationship happens in the relating to each other, right? It happens as we take part in the relationship. Dan would be so proud of me right now. But remember, a relationship requires presence. That means really being here. It means not while I'm talking to somebody that I'm in a relationship with, I'm not thinking about, oh gosh, what do I have to do later? I have to do all that laundry later, and I gotta, oh gosh, I should check my watch, check my phone. Is anybody? And meanwhile, my friend's talking to me, right? I'm not present with that person, right? So in order to be in a relationship, it has to be present. I have to be available to this person, and we have to have this presence. Like, that's where it starts, right? Now, attunement, right? Attunement is something that happens. Attunement is the ability to see, and this is something that's very often talked about in the context of parenting, right? The parents, oftentimes parents, because of just general survival, right? We wind up just like kind of seeing and dealing with and interacting on the level of the behavior of our children, right? So attunement is about seeing past that behavior and connecting to the emotions that are behind the behavior, right? So when your child or a colleague or a barista at Starbucks or a lady at the ticket counter at the little amusement park here in Denver, right? Like, when somebody's being like, nasty to me, right? I can see past the nastiness. Like, I cannot say, oh, you're being mean to me, so now I'm shutting down, I'm going to be mean to you, right? Instead, I can see past that and say, wow, something's going on here, right? Like, there's something bothering this person. Now, of course, if it's somebody who's anonymous, as a ticket person at the amusement park, I'm literally only going to know my relationship with this person is literally going to last 3 or 4 minutes. Like, that's it, right? So there's no real long-term investment I'm going to do. I'm not, and we don't have any of that part yet, right? So I can't sit here and say like, oh, well, hey, do you want to tell me about what's bothering you? I was going to hit the button that calls the police on me, right? And so it's not, but yet at the same time, I can attune to her, right? And I can also resonate, which is that R. Right? I can feel the pain that she's feeling, right? And then in my resonance, that now I have the opportunity to be extra nice to her, to say, hey, I hope your day is not going too hard right now. I hope everybody's been nice to you today. I hope you feel safe, right? I can say something kind like that. And then even in that 2-minute or 4-minute relationships with somebody who I have no idea, if I do those things, if I'm really present with her, if I attune to her and I can resonate with what she's feeling, now there's a trust that becomes available to us, right? She trusts me and I can trust her as long as she's reciprocated everything. Right? But if I'm trying to be present and she's on her phone, not really paying attention to me, and I'm getting, anxious and she's not attuning to my anxiety and I'm like, visibly upset now and she's just treating me like, like nobody else, well, then I don't trust her, right? It's not that I mistrust her, but she just hasn't given me any reason to trust her, right? Now this part, right, is important in all aspects of every relationship. Right. And that's the thing. Like a lot of times we get the feeling like, especially with people who have been around us for a long time, like our spouses, right? We get the sense that we don't need to do all this for that person. Right? It's like, okay, I've known you for 30 years now and we're married. You're not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. We're legally bound into this thing. We got these kids. So now maybe I don't have to be present with my wife or my spouse, partner, right? I don't have to attune to them. I don't have to resonate with their emotions. And maybe I don't care that there's no trust. But that is a relationship that is, at best case, is in decline. Right? Because the thing that remember, I talked about my sisters, right? Who, I have nothing against my sisters. I love them for who they are. I mean, they share my flesh, and we're brothers and sisters. And so I mean, of course I have a place in my heart for them, right? They were also, to a much lesser degree, they dealt with the same kind of traumatic experiences that I did. I mean, much less degree, because I'm happy because I was the older one, and the boy, I took the brunt of it, which is good. I'm glad for that, But again, we don't necessarily have much of a relationship right now. Now, we could rekindle that relationship very quickly, which you could also do with your spouse of 20, 30 years, right? But because we're not relating to each other, which means we're not being present, attuning, resonating, and building trust between us, we're just out here in the world, like call each other on our birthdays and, that kind of stuff. I mean, it's okay, whatever, but that's not a relationship, right? Or it's a different kind of relationship, right? But when we talk about any relationship, right, a situation in which we are relating to each other, the act of relating is this part that I talk about, that Dan Siegel talks about, right? Presence, attunement, resonance, trust. Okay? Now the thing is, right, that any given moment that we are with someone in a relationship, right, or with someone with whom we are in a relationship, right, it requires all four of these things. Right? Otherwise, we're not really relating. Otherwise, what we're doing is we're rupturing that relationship. And anytime we rupture a relationship, we need to repair that rupture. We need to mend the relationship if we care about that relationship, right? And, because relationships are truly, part of our well-being, we should care about it. All right. And so what that means is that any time we find ourselves in a position where we recognize that we were not present, we were not attuning, we were not resonating, we were not building trust between each other, that is a rupture, right? And so now we have to come back and we have to repair that. And repairing it is simple, right? Repairing it is so simple. It is just as simple as just saying, hey, I'm really sorry that, I recognized that the other day, we were talking and you know what, I felt uncomfortable with what we were talking about maybe, and I should have said something, but I didn't. And instead I was like looking at my phone and making excuses to get out of there. And that wasn't really good of me to do for you. I didn't do the right thing by you, right? Now, that is present, that is attuning, that is resonant, and that is the first step towards trust building. Okay, so even in just doing that, we have now repaired the relationship, right? Or we've mended that rupture. Now, here's the thing. Just like a broken bone, right? They say that when you break a bone, the spot where the bone mends is stronger than it was before, okay? And so the same thing is true in our relationships. If I do that, if I take the time to come back to somebody and say, hey, you know what? And I do this all the time with my kids and my wife. I mean, all the time, right? Anytime I find myself stepping out of line even a little bit, I come back and I do this kind of reparative, action. I come back and I say, hey, I'm owning it. I'm sorry. I didn't do the right thing. I wasn't really present with you the other day. I hope you can forgive me. And please know that in my understanding of this, I'm going to really try to do better next time, right? That relationship becomes stronger than it was before. All right. And so now I want to loop back to what we were talking about with the practice. Okay. Because this is important. Okay. The thing is, right, just like I just mentioned today, right? It's one thing to understand on a conceptual level all these different things that I talk about here, right? But it is a completely different thing to practice these things. And here's the difference, okay? In the moment where a relationship ruptures, right? Again, that's because we weren't present. It's because we weren't attuning. It's because we weren't resonating and we weren't building trust towards each other, right? But here's the thing, right? Like, that is generally likely to happen when we are dysregulated, okay? So meaning when I am dysregulated, and or even better, when I see one of my family members is dysregulated, right? Like, this is the opportunity that I have to attune, right? To say, okay, you're having a really hard time right now. So instead of taking offense of what you're saying, and instead of kind of reacting to the anger that you're feeling, which is clearly something that you don't want, is just just showing up for you. I can offer you a hug instead of pushing back on you, right? But the reason I bring this up in the context of practice, right, is that when we become triggered in any way and we lose our regulation in any way, we don't remember all of this stuff, right? We don't remember we don't remember art. We don't remember any of it, right? We just try to survive the situation. And that's where a lot of damage gets done to relationships. Right? So practicing this on a regular basis, practicing compassion, practicing kindness, and yes, even practicing part. You can do that regularly. There's lots of different practices. There's active listening practices that will help. There's just ways in which we can practice this. And I can help you with that if you come to my meeting on Thursday night. So I hope this helps, right? I hope it makes sense. But again, the concept of practice is really important, because just before we go, I just want to just make sure you understand this, that the reason I say that is because when we practice something over and over and over again, it becomes an embodied memory. It's not a memory that we have to figure out in our mind, right? Because again, in that moment, we're not going to be able to figure anything out with our mind, right? We're lost. We're actually not even using the part of our brain that does the thinking. We're using the part of the brain that does the reacting. And so that's the key to practice. Now, it applies with this, and it also applies with every situation that you can imagine, right? That all of these practices of mindfulness and compassion and forgiveness and all the things that I talk about here, right? They all go right out the window as soon as you become dysregulated. That's why it's not just about understanding it. It's about practicing it so it becomes an embodied habit. So that way when the poop hits the fan, I'm still here because I have this muscle memory almost, okay? All right, so send me an email. Let me know what you think about this Thursday night thing, okay? And I'll talk to you soon. Take care, everybody. Have a great day.